All right, welcome everybody. Let's call this meeting to order of the Open Space Committee for Wednesday, April 7th. We are going to begin with public audience, and my understanding is, Susan, that you wanted to say some words.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to announce in public audience at this meeting that the Grange has received a matching grant from Sustainable CT to fund farmers' apprentices this summer. We did it last summer. It's a matching program where the apprentice applies through the Grange. We interview all the candidates and then they're matched with an experienced farmer. So our main goal of developing this program, which we've been thinking about for a number of years, and the matching program really helped to get it off the ground, is that these farmers just have decades and decades of experience. We know demographically farmers are getting older. I think it's really important that we find ways for them to pass on their experience. And, if there's a very helpful apprentice, it could, an opportunity for them to have, someone who provides enough value that can continue at the farm, or maybe help them as they get older to keep their farm running and, bring some other people on board. So that grant is, so we actually provide a very small honoraria to the farmers, and a stipend to the apprentices. And as the third leg of this, we are interviewing the apprentices, and we're also having free seeds at the Grange. So if anyone needs seeds, we have all kinds of seeds on our front steps, and people are welcome to come and take those. They're free, basically. We've packed them up. They're free for anyone who wants them. And I think that's all I'll say right now. So thank you very much. Oh, wait, where you can find the grant, sorry. It's through Patronicity, which is basically spelled patron and then city. So patronicity.com/Grange, and you can see some photos and read a little bit more about it. And as I said, we did this last year. It was very successful. We had a high school student who was a partial apprentice, a college student at UConn who's in kind of natural resources and ag, and a paraprofessional teacher from Hartford who's been wanting to learn more about farming. So we're looking forward to kind of a mixed group again, like we had last year. And we're hoping to fund 3 full apprentices. And the other side benefit of the program last year is that we had some people that applied that decided they had kind of older parents that needed their help, so they couldn't be didn't want to commit to being an apprentice, but they did volunteer to help one of the farmers, and they hope to be an apprentice this year. So thank you.
Thanks, Susan. I wanted to see if there would be support for amending our agenda and adding a discussion item, which would be an update on the Meadowwood project. And I propose that we put that first before we get to the other items. If 2/3 are supportive, we could do that. Is there a motion to add that agenda item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. Yep, Bill Rice.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then we will add that agenda item. Why don't we go right there? I'll give an update to anybody who is watching or who doesn't know what took place last night. The Board of Finance public hearing. The Board of Finance did not forward the Meadowwood project to referendum in May, which was obviously very disappointing to the Board of Selectmen and to everybody who wrote in and spoke in support of this project. The Board of Finance at their public hearing had about a dozen people participate virtually in person, another 160 plus letters. The vast majority of them were in support of Meadowwood. And for reasons that are hard for me to understand, the Board of Finance decided not to give our residents the opportunity to vote on this project. So I want to talk about the path forward for Meadowwood and answer any questions. And let me pause there and see if there's any additional context or update that anyone wanted to share.
So Eric, please just explain to me if the Board of Finance chose not to put it forward to the referendum, does that mean the monies will not be appropriated?
So the next option, a signature campaign. My understanding is that if we gather enough signatures, that there could be a town meeting where a motion could be made at the town meeting to send this issue to referendum, and then there could be a vote at referendum. So there's a path forward, and from my perspective, Meadowood is very much alive, but it is going to be an effort to collect. I believe it's nearly 1,000 signatures, which equates to 5% of registered voters in Simsbury.
I have a question.
Yeah, Helen.
Can you see me yet?
I can't, but we hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Are you the one specifically to set the date for the referendum?
We do. The Board of Selectmen does that, and that's on our agenda tonight.
Okay. Do you have flexibility to move it out so that if there was a movement to have the petition, that there would be time for the people of Simsbury to respond in that way and collect 1,000 signatures?
Yeah, so my understanding is that's something, Maria, perhaps you can weigh in with a little more context here. My understanding is the latest we can schedule the referendum would be May 7th. Yeah.
So how many weeks does that give us? Let me see. May 7th. That's only 4 weeks away.
Yeah. It's a tight timeline, but my understanding is that if we missed the referendum in early May, we could hold another vote just for this project if it got to that point.
After that
point, yeah. Maria, is there any other context you have to provide?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And again, this is evolving a little bit just because
excuse me, could you go slowly, please?
Sure, Helen. Sorry about that. This is evolving a bit just because this will be our first time sort of going through this process since the charter revisions occurred around this process. And so I am just going to make sure I understand clearly from our town attorney, even if by some chance we were able to, folks were able to gather the signatures. So that's sort of the first step in the process is that, we, as Eric indicated, we would have to get, a little under 1,000 signatures on the petition. That then gets submitted to our town clerk, and then the town clerk has to certify the signatures. So again, essentially ensuring that the people who signed the petition are in fact residents of the town of Simsbury, or they are property owners who have property valued at $1,000 or higher, but do not reside in town. So after that process occurs and the petition has been certified, the next step in the process would be for the Board of Selectmen to schedule a special town meeting date. So we will have to, post the legal notices for that and hold that event. There will, just be a little bit of additional logistical, planning and challenges because of our current COVID environment. So again, this is all evolving, but, we're thinking it's most likely we would need to hold the event outdoors and probably have a rain date in the event that we had, we get essentially, washed out. So again, we would have the special town meeting. And then we would be required following that to have an automatic referendum on this. What I'm trying to get a little bit more, again, clarity from our town attorney is that whether or not, if by some chance we were able to make the May 4th date, if in fact we would be able to proceed and have this added to the budget referendum, or if we are required to have a separate special referendum for this matter regardless. After talking with him some this afternoon, I think it might be the latter. But again, we're going to try to get a little bit more clarification on that from him. So again, a lot of steps in the process, but again, I think that this is really important. And if we receive, the signatures on the petition, we'll do, everything we can to make sure that we're backing into a timeline that, provides for the bond authorization in advance of the closing date.
Susan, would you be comfortable sharing the role that the Grange is playing and the opportunity for people to sign the petition who may be interested?
Oops.
Oh, you're on. Yeah, there you go.
Sorry. Yes. So when this came up a couple of weeks ago, the president of the Grange is really strongly supportive of the vote on this and supportive of this land for multiple reasons. For those of you who aren't that familiar with the Grange, it's an organization, community organization that started over 150 years ago. It started after the strife of the Civil War to try and bring communities together. It was organized to support agricultural and rural communities against some of the kind of monopolies and, grain monopolies and things like that, and to make sure that kind of small communities and rural communities had a voice in Washington. So that's kind of its founding. And it's actually, there's a number of very progressive laws that were put forth about 100 years ago called the Granger laws. So it has definitely has a role in supporting all of these things, and actually tried to help, Black farmers get on their feet after the Civil War. We're particularly interested in this in the Simsbury Grange because the Morehouse College students that worked at Meadowood also came to dances at our Grange. And we've started getting grants related to the interest in the civil rights history at our Grange. We've planned a civil rights exhibit at our Grange, which got postponed because of COVID. The person who's featured in that exhibit currently has an exhibit at the Connecticut Historical Museum, and it's going to be coming to the Grange after the Connecticut Historical Museum in Hartford. He knew Dr. King, his dad knew Dr. King, and his dad worked in the tobacco fields in Windsor, not in Simsbury, but they met each other when all the Morehouse College students would go down to Hartford on the weekend. So, there's really a very deep interest in the greater Hartford region in this. So what the Grange decided to do is to help support collecting signatures is we're going to hold open hours for signature collection this weekend between 12 and 5 on Saturday and Sunday. We've also contacted a notary. So if you're interested in signing, we're going to have drive-by signing. It'll be kind of like getting your vaccine, except for this will be, affirming your support of sending this for a vote of the public on public land, which is not a special interest. This is one of the most bipartisan, broadly supported issues in the country. And I was part of a major survey on this, a major questionnaire that was completely anonymous. I have no idea who got it. The support for this kind of thing is overwhelming. And the median income, the support for spending your own money on it is overwhelming. 80 to 90%, depending on what the question was. And the median income of the people taking that survey was $55,000. So this is not something that you're not protecting the little guy by preventing this purchase. This is what people want, the public wants broadly. So please come by. We're going to have safe drive-by signing in our parking lot. It'll be super quick with clipboards, zip through, but we're also going to have seeds available and have an open house at the Grange. So if you'd like to see the Grange, which is like really, I love it so much. I don't even know how to explain it to you. I really love this organization and it's beautiful inside. We've been working so hard on it. You can park at the plaza and walk over, and I'd be happy to give you a tour. And what I like to say, it's kind of like your great grand aunt mother's house. So if you want to see what it looked like in the 40s, 50s, whatever, we've kept all that and kind of buffed it up at the Grange. And I hope to see you this weekend between 12 and 5 on Saturday and Sunday.
Thanks, Susan. I'll just add that there is also a Facebook event that's being created that'll be shared widely to get the word out about the opportunity. That's probably the cheapest and most effective way we can get the word out. But for anyone on this call who cares about this issue, encourage your friends and neighbors and any registered Simsbury voter to come on out and take 5 minutes.
Yeah, we'll be bringing it up at the Simsbury Land Trust, but does it have to be it has to be an actual signature. So we have to have some way of actually connecting. And Susan, you said there's going to be a notary there. What's that for? That so that you can show the driver's licenses and the signature, and they will notarize it, or what?
Yeah. So every person doesn't have to have their signature notarized, but if you're a signature collector, every page of signatures has to be notarized. So so if people have just collected, they can be notarized. I don't know if we're going to have a notary there the entire time. We'll probably set up another time, maybe next weekend, or, set up another time for getting signatures notarized. So the signature collector has to be a voter or someone who has over $1,000 worth of property in town, as Maria mentioned. I believe that's eligible too. And so that has to be the person who's collecting the signatures and has to be who signs the petition. And then a notary has to notarize every page. So if anyone would like to collect signatures or sign, the Grange would be helping to do that. And just as a small aside, we did collect signatures similarly for the Ethel Walker Woods way back. So there's a lot of people in town that are familiar with this process.
And do we
Eric and Maria, can I jump in with a couple of questions? First of all, it was my understanding there's a deadline on the grant funds from our partner on this project. Are we up against that?
There we go.
Mute,
Sorry, I
Maria?
was having a hard time unmuting. It might actually be, a great time. So I have two documents that I can share in open session. One is a funding status on the various grants that we are waiting on that have and/or have been committed, as well as the cost per acre analysis. So, why don't I go ahead and pull those up and share those and talk about that?
Yeah.
I have a question. I thought one of the grants that I had read on said something to the effect, and perhaps other of the grants say the same thing, that if it did not pass the referendum, the grant money would not be available. But it didn't give a time limit. So I think it's important, as we get into this project, into this opportunity, to see if we can get the people's voice out there. If we can just, request a real good due diligence to go forward. And I have one other question just about like that. Dave has jogged me here. Is there flexibility with Culbro itself? Is there flexibility with TPL? Where do those two major entities enter into if we want to do something after this referendum?
Sure. So I think probably a good starting point would just be to quickly go over the status of the funding scenarios. And then anything that's specific to more purchase price, appraisals, things of that nature. We did have actually an executive session scheduled for this evening just to give you an update on that. So for those particular items, I'd say we could just save that for the executive session. But in terms of our funding status and our cost per acre analysis, that we can share in open session. So at this point in time, this is what we believe will be, probably closer to the funding model that we would look like, that we would, again, pool these various sources of funds together to make the acquisition happen. So we have $500,000 that was committed by the State Historic Preservation Office. We have another $400,000 that was committed on a contingent basis by DEEP for their open space and watershed land acquisition grant program. There was some signage from some of our older acquisitions that had become rotted and was no longer there. So they're just asking us to replace that signage. And Tom Tyberski and Orlando Cassiano worked with our planning department and is making that happen for us. The George Dudley Seymour Trust has committed $280,000 to this project. We have a verbal commitment for federal Highlands conservation funding. Approximately, we're anticipating around $1.4 million. And again, that's verbally committed. We can formally request that once we've, formally received the DEEP grant. There's also an additional $870,000 that's anticipated from the Department of Agriculture, again, federal funds that's been verbally committed to us at this point. There's a sale of one private lot. That would be a transaction between TPL and a private landowner. The town would not be involved in that transaction, but the proceeds would assist in the acquisition. And then lastly, the town of Simsbury contribution, which would be pending referendum, is about 2.4 million, plus or minus. It might be a little less, it might be a little more. For the purposes of the bond issuance, there's a few additional small costs that we've built in. We did an environmental review of the property. The Board of Finance required a separate second appraisal. That was about $10,000 in cost to us. So that would be covered through a potential bond. There's bond issuance costs. So you may see that there's a number that's been circulating that's about 2.51 million. And again, that provides a little bit of cushion in the event that it's just a touch above the 2.4 that we may need to put in, along with some of those additional costs. So this, again, I think is a really good overview and breakdown of the status of where our funding model is at.
Now, again, though, Maria, I don't see any deadlines in particular on this sheet. Again, are we up against it? So if we have to have a town meeting and that takes us a certain amount of time, are we going to lose some of this TPL funding because we missed a particular deadline?
So the big deadline that we're working against is the contract to purchase. So you may recall that they had a 12-month contract to purchase and then could potentially extend that out an additional 6 months. So basically 18 months to complete the transaction. You may also recall that we had both in the town manager's proposed budget last year, so that would have been 2020, as well as the Board of Selectmen adopted budget. We had included the Meadowood acquisition because we knew that we were going to be working against those time constraints. However, the Board of Finance had asked us to pull it off and had asked for various additional pieces of information that they wanted to consider it during this budget process. So unfortunately, with those delays, I don't want to sugarcoat it. If in fact, we do receive the signatures that are needed on the petition in order to proceed with the special town meeting and the special referenda, we will need to move pretty aggressively in order to meet that contract deadline for the purchase of the parcel.
Have we already sought the 6 months extension, or are we still within the 1 year original contract?
No, nope. So the 6 months is through July of this coming year. The 6 month extension. So we are going to have to move pretty aggressively.
Okay. Then also to Eric or Maria or to Susan, in regard to requiring a notarized signature at the bottom of a particular sheet. As you all know, I'm a lawyer. I'm a commissioner of the Superior Court. I'm allowed to take an oath. Is a commissioner of the Superior Court allowed to be a notary for the purposes of this petition?
Yes, you are, Dave. And we would, yes, you are. And we would welcome your help if you are willing to offer that.
No, oh, absolutely. And then this then kind of is directed to Marjorie, that I am sure that many of your funders, your constituents, you probably have a bunch of other notaries and attorneys in there.
Yeah.
What I'd like to know is whether or not the land trust has, and I realize this all happened last night, but what I guess I envisioned was, wouldn't it be nice that we could coordinate that there's some signage, save Meadowood. Someone like myself brings that to the golf course where I agree to sit there for 4 hours during the morning tea time session, where I know I'm going to have about 100 people, 150 people come through, and I could be taking signatures, but I need something behind me to say that I'm kind of the authorized guy to do that. Is the land trust going to talk about that at all?
We're going to be talking about it tomorrow night. We've got a land trust board meeting, and we will be talking about, we can probably get some signage. I don't know if the town wants to do that, but I can see about getting some signage. I don't know. How do we determine who's the authorized signature collector? I mean, do we have an official form, a template for signatures that we'll just do?
Maria, I can only assume that's what the town attorney's working on.
Sure. So as we've done, Bob has shared with me, we've done this in the past, is that when we've had a citizen initiated petition, our town attorney and our town clerk will review the petition, because certainly if our citizens are going through that effort, we don't want the petition to fail simply because something was worded improperly. So we'll do essentially like a consultation, and we'll do a review of the petition wording. And so I have coordinated that with our town attorney, with our town clerk. We did provide some feedback back to the Grange, since they are coordinating that petition. We shared that today. There's one remaining piece that Bob said he feels needs to be included, just based on our charter language. So we'll be working on that, tonight and trying our best to get that over to the Grange tonight, if not tonight, first thing tomorrow morning. So they will have a form that can be used for gaining the signatures.
Mm-hmm.
Can those also be sent
Susan.
to Simsbury Land Trust?
I'm sorry, Helen?
No, that was Marjorie.
Oh, I'm sorry, Marjorie.
Yeah, can those forms also be sent to the Simsbury Land Trust?
Yes. Yeah, anybody can collect signatures, basically. So any legal elector can collect signatures. So we're just trying to, organize this drive this weekend as a place where people could easily drive in and sign if they want to, and see the Grange, because as I said, I love it. But that's a great idea if you'd be willing to collect signatures. I mean, I could have a little, you don't need a sign really, but I could easily get a little sign made up for you if that would be helpful. And that would be great because we need 953 and that's a lot. But we want to get them as quickly as possible because of these timelines that we're up against.
So Susan, what I envisioned was between open space, park and rec, interested parties of the land trust and the land trust itself, I realize it's somewhat of a monumental task in a short period of time, but we should be thinking about somebody outside of Fitzgerald's, somebody outside of Big Y, somebody at the golf course, every congregating spot or a transfer spot. I realize that, yes, is it going to take some volunteer time? The answer is yes, but there are logistics, i.e. having someone who can notarize or certify a particular form. Because I think really, frankly, to me, 953 is not that hard. If you went around your neighborhood and I go around my neighborhood and Marjorie goes around her neighborhood, and then I throw in Eric and all his poll with Maria as well, I think, and Kelly, we don't want to leave Kelly out, and Bill Rice. I think that this is very manageable, but part of it was if we're going to be outside of Fitzgerald's or Big Y, I think we need just something kind of, if you will, authorizing us to be the person with a mask on approaching someone saying, by the way, can I talk to you? I have an issue that I want to address with you.
Hey, Eric, can I just ask maybe a point of order here? Are we discussing activities that the Open Space Committee are going to undertake?
I don't think we're taking it official. This is not officially in the capacity of the Open Space Committee, but I know there are members here that are interested in participating. Is that a fair way of summing it up?
I'm just wondering, is this?
I want to make Bill. Can I make very clear? This is not an Open Space Committee
Initiative.
Okay,
Yeah,
then I'm not sure it should be discussed in such detail in this meeting.
Fair enough. It was more this. This is the beginning. We're trying to just figure out some ideas. So with that being said, Bill, then is it the discussion needs to be outside of a public meeting like this? Is that fair to say?
Well, I think there were a couple other organizations that have already been mentioned that seem to be organizing. I think that would be the proper place to have those discussions.
Okay, and then so can you clarify? That was one of my other questions. Can the town play any role in the collection of signatures, whether it is through open space, through Board of Selectmen, or does the town need to basically maintain a neutral position?
That was a question I had for Maria. I'm hoping she can tackle that.
Yeah, and again, I can confirm this with our town attorney, but I think that if any one of you as an individual, wants to do that, that's certainly, you're right. I think it would be different if you were, say, representing yourself as, on behalf of the Open Space Committee or on behalf of, the town of Simsbury, or on behalf of the Board of Selectmen. But as an individual representing yourself, I think absolutely, you certainly have a right to help with the effort.
But I guess to put a finer point on it, can we use, and I'm not asking, I'm just asking for clarification, can we use town resources to collect petition signatures?
Yeah, I would probably say, and again, and I can confirm with Bob, I'd probably say, not using, staff time, for example, or, things of that nature. Probably not. Probably not.
Okay.
Maria, then can I clarify, or can you ask Bob to clarify for me that to the extent that I'm garnering signatures, I think I'm hearing from you that the words "I'm on the commission," the Park and Rec, the Cultural Park and Rec Commission, should probably not come out of my mouth. It's more something along the lines of, "Hey, have you heard about the Meadowood project, and are you interested in seeing that go to vote?" Is that your understanding?
I think so, but I can definitely have, Bob.
I have my hand up, but you can't see it, right?
All yours, Ellen.
Is this a good time?
Yeah.
Okay. Marjorie, I'm going to stretch here. And the land trust and the municipality has worked hand in hand in projects in the past. We have partnered. We have helped each other. And maybe I can gently suggest that Marjorie be the point person if she wants to take it out of this committee and take it and let the land trusts perhaps be the point people to proceed with this. And then the rest of us can do it privately because most of us are members of the land trusts.
Well, I think the land trust and the Grange certainly work on this. And I'm sure there's some other groups that might want to join in. But we can coordinate between us at the moment. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they could use the help.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. Is there any other questions anyone had on Meadowood before we move on to our agenda?
Can I just ask one last point of clarification from Maria? My understanding of some of the litigation that's happened with these petitions, can we get Bob to put in writing pretty much what the parameters are about what anyone gathering signatures who's affiliated with the town or a commission or a board, where the line is, so that we have a nice, clear, bright line that we know we can say this, but we can't say that. Is that asking too much?
No, I can definitely speak with Bob about, some sort of legal opinion on, what's essentially an appropriate role for you as an individual in that process. Yeah, I think that's fair. And I really appreciate and understand, everybody wanting to maintain their, professional integrity and not do something that, might violate our ethics code or something of that nature. So I think that's a very reasonable request.
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah, you're welcome, of course.
Okay, Maria, were you going to add something? I could see you were about to.
Yes, just very, very quickly. I know we've shared this document, with the committee in the past. And we did do an updated cost per acre analysis on Meadowood. Again, we had presented a funding model, quite a bit in open session throughout 2020. As we started to learn of the status of the grant awards, we realized that we might have a slightly increased town contribution to the project, potentially upwards of $2.428 million. And so we updated our cost per acre analysis, assuming sort of the worst case scenario in terms of what the town might have to use towards the acquisition. And it's still, quite a bargain, especially when we look at some of our past acquisitions in more recent years that were, again, large scale acquisitions. And so we broke it up two ways. So can folks see my cursor if I do this like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So this right here is reflecting just the purchase price. So not some of those other things that I talked about, like the cost of the appraisal that the Board of Finance had required us to do, the environmental review. This is purely just the acquisition cost. And so the town funds towards the overall purchase price is about 40%. And we would be leveraging about the remainder 60% of the funds would be, again, privately donated dollars, such as the trust that I mentioned earlier, or grant funds. The overall cost per acre is just under $21,000, and then the town's all-in is about $8,400. If you include some of those other miscellaneous costs, such as borrowing costs related to the bond, again, the appraisal cost, etc., the town's all-in is a little closer to this $8,700 per acre. Now, again, comparatively, we also adjusted the past acquisitions adjusted it for the present value of the dollar. And the Triangle purchase, which occurred in 2008, was about $50,000 per acre was the town's contribution to that acquisition. The Ethel Walker purchase happened in a number of different phases, and the cost varied per phase. That's this column over here. Overall, it averaged out to just under $23,000 an acre was the town's contribution. So when you think about, say, 85, I'm rounding, but $8,500 to $23,000 an acre, $8,500 an acre to $50,000 an acre, I think for me, it just really puts into perspective what an incredible job that the Trust for Public Land did on our behalf to really, again, leverage grant dollars and private dollars to help make this happen. When we had the initial conversation with them, looking at our debt modeling and such, we had some pretty honest conversations with them early on that probably, taking on, debt service much beyond $2 to $3 million for this project would be a stretch for us. And so again, I have to give them a lot of credit. They worked really hard to leverage a lot of outside dollars for us to make this happen. And again, I think it's this column here, the town's cost per acre. It really puts that into perspective pretty well.
Thanks, Maria.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Let me see what we have on the agenda today.
I just want to add that the kinds of grant funding that we're getting and having the Trust for Public Land involved at all, someone mentioned this last night, but they don't get involved in a project unless they think it has extremely high value, conservation value to the public. And the grants that they're applying for are incredibly competitive. You have to provide all kinds of documentation and review, and it's reviewed by experts. And if you're in land conservation in Connecticut, you know how competitive those dollars are. So this is basically, $3.5 million is being handed on a silver platter to the town of Simsbury because of the importance of this project.
Yeah.
And that was effort that was not necessary. That didn't have to be done by the town staff to get those grants.
Right.
So there's a cost savings there as well.
Right. Okay. Let's move on. Approval of the minutes. Were there any feedback on the minutes?
One quickie. This is Helen. I'm not mentioned in the top line present,
Oh.
but I'm quoted.
Well, that's quite a skill you have, Helen. All right, let's get that added. Any other suggestions? All right. Is there?
I don't have. Let me see. I have some notes. No, I don't have anything to criticize of the minutes, but I do have a question after the approval.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes with Helen's name on the top?
I mean a motion. I
Move.
would move it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Susan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, then the minutes stand. What were you going to add, Helen? Helen, were you going to add something?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I noticed that on the agenda going to the next item, we're going to be discussing these drafts that have been in our packet. And I'm just looking at the time. I would like to ask for a grace period. The last thing I want to do is put it off. But the acquisition criteria policy is troubling me, but I don't want to get into it tonight. Is there any objection if we could put that off?
I don't see any objection. I'm watching heads. Would we just need a motion to table that item?
I move we table that item.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of tabling the draft acquisition criteria policy?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Is there, for the policies work group, is there an update on the model agricultural lease? I didn't see an update in the packet.
We had a problematic meeting. Susan's microphone wasn't working.
Oh,
So
that's yucky.
we really like a redo.
Okay.
Because there are only about two or three, I think three of us, Tim was there, I think.
It went by pretty quickly without me talking on it.
But we weren't able to cover a whole lot. So We'd like a redo.
Okay. Is there anything anyone wanted to bring up under other business? Okay.
Real quick, Eric, under other business, as you know, Kelly has now been our designee to the committee. And I am just a little unclear what my role is. I'm certainly an interested participant, but I didn't look at this before the meeting. Do we have, once Kelly's designated, does that mean I'm out, but I can still, like any member of the public, be involved? Or do we need just for the next meeting figure out that role?
I don't want to, Maria or staff, please correct me, but I think, I'm always welcome your participation, Dave, but probably, we only have one, formal representative from your committee. So, so you would be participating with the rest of our citizens.
That's fine with me. That's
okay.
Fine with me.
All right. I hope I gave the right answer. I like to be as inclusive as possible, but
well done, Eric.
Wasn't sure whether I should be voting or not.
Okay. All right. No voting if Kelly's voting. Although I do appreciate Culture, Parks, and Rec. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss the purchase of the Meadowood property, joined by Maria Capriola, Tom Hazel, Mike Glidden, who